Okay, the variation of having a no slider or slider remove pack job, one of the variations is how we set the brakes. The brakes are definitely set differently. When they don't run through the keeper ring, we need to have a separate device to get the control line or the force of the control line through that keeper ring. If you notice there's a loop on the riser, that loop needs to go through the line, through the ring, and then the toggle through that loop. So we have a LRT, and again, it's going to be the loop on the riser going through the line, then the loop on the riser going through the ring, and then the toggle. So it's line, ring, toggle. Stow the tip in the keeper there, give it a good tug, make sure it doesn't want to come undone, and the excess stows on the back side. This is the line release mod. This is the equipment setup of the line release mod. Remember that there is an emergency procedure that goes with this setup, so you'll have to practice that. Here we go. We're using the deep brake setting, the number 2 setting from the toggle. He's going to take the loop and pass it through the line, pass the loop through the ring, and then pass the toggle through the loop. Again, LRT, line, ring, toggle. The tip gets stowed, the Velcro is mated, and the excess control line is kept in the elastic on the back. You want to pass the loop on the riser through the control line, through the ring, and then the toggle through the loop, LRT. Then stow the tip of the toggle in the keeper, mate the Velcro. Now any excess control line is stowed in the elastic on the back side. Once that's done, Steve will use the additional clamp he likes to keep the risers even. He'll gather the lines through his fingers so he can kind of keep track of continuity and work his way up to the canopy. This is very similar to the slider up pack job shown in the earlier section. It's just we don't have a slider. We've already had one variation of how the toggles are set. There's going to be another variation when we get into setting the tailgate. The tailgate is an anti-line over device. He will install the tailgate and show you how they set. If you want more detail of the flaking of the parachute, you can refer to the earlier section. Now it's in time to install the tailgate. We're going to use a pair of hemostats just to make it a little easier. Sometimes these will be pre-installed. You've already been making some jumps with it, or your buddy, or whatever. You can put this on before you get to this point. So what we're looking for here is the center left C-line. In that center left C-line, you're going to find a small insert. Looks like a cat's eye, like a brake setting, but it's much smaller. What you're going to have to do is you have to get that cat's eye open. Once you've pulled it open, you'll want to put the tailgate through there. Okay? It is designed to be very small because we want it to hold the tailgate pretty tightly. If it gets too stretched out, you'll lose tailgates, and it happens from time to time. So we really start out with it being very small. It's a little finicky in the beginning. So get those set, and generally you won't have any problem with them. If we start them out too big, then they definitely fight you a lot more. So starting out small is the way to go. Once he's got the hemostats through there, he'll grab the tailgate and he'll kind of pull it through. And we're going to stop at the halfway point on the tailgate. There. So our tailgate's installed now. Let's get a good view of that. I'm going to show that. Yeah. Okay. We'll also install a rubber band, basically Lark set a rubber band onto the tailgate, and that's what we're going to use to close the gate. So basically it's a gate. It's going to be open or closed. When it's closed, it's going to carry or hold certain lines. So there's a installed tailgate. That's one side, there's the other side. When we do finally close the tailgate, we want to make sure that the red line is in the tailgate. Bingo, just like that. We don't want the red line to be on the outside. It's much better to have the line on the inside. Okay, so we're going to be putting 12 lines inside that tailgate. The 12 red lines. Steve's going to start down at the container, and he's going to get 4 lines in his hands. The 4 red lines. There are 2 from the left, 2 from the right. There's 2 control lines, 2 off the D. As he walks up, they're going to continue to cascade. They're going to multiply. They're going to multiply out into 12 lines. So what started as 4 lines at the bottom down there, now spread out. See, he's got those white lines kind of trapped in there. Yeah, there you go. Just lift them out of the way. We don't want anything else in there. All we want in our hand or in the tailgate is the 12 tailgate lines. And those are the tailgate-friendly colored lines he's dealing with. Once he finds those, he'll keep the red line inside the tailgate. Then he's going to wrap that rubber band around the tailgate. Yeah, looks like he did, what is that, 2 wraps of line there? So that's going to be a nice tailgate setting. Okay, we've got a good amount of tension. You probably want at least 10 to 15 pounds worth of force to require that tailgate to come open. If you're doing a lot of lower stuff, static line or pilot chute assist, you don't need as much. But if you're doing a lot faster airspeed, good solid 3-second free fall, you can get into 15 or 20 pounds to keep that tailgate closed just by using more or less wraps. All right, that's tailgate. Okay, he double checks, he makes sure that he's only got the right ones. And now from here on out, it is very much like the earlier pack job. So this is a nose variation. First pack job, and what we left it in the earlier section, basically just was the nose wide open. Sometimes you want to vary that a little bit by tightening it up. It will give the ability to slow the opening down a little bit. You can see that's about 3-4 rolls. They're kind of a tucking roll almost, kind of taking about a 2 to 3 inch bite of the nose there and doing a group roll. Keeping it symmetrical is really the big thing. So there's the 3-inch fold, and then another fold, and yet another. And what this is going to do is going to reduce the amount of air that can get in there immediately. That's going to slow that opening down just a little bit. In this particular variation, still keeping the center cell nose completely open and exposed. We can take this variation a little bit further. That'd be kind of a middle variation. By taking it a little bit further, we'll end up burying that center cell completely in these folds. So kind of starting out about the same, maybe a slightly tighter roll. So instead of a 3-inch roll of the nose, now we're down to like a 2-inch roll, and it can be done a few extra times. Once he's about halfway through, you'll notice that he kind of incorporates that red center cell as well. And again, this is just going to give you a little bit more restriction at the nose. I'm going to kind of starve the nose of air for just a little bit longer during the pack or during the opening, and it can soften the opening a little bit. Symmetry is very important here. You don't want to roll everything from one side, keeping it even. So whatever you're doing to the right side, it's going to be done to the left side. And now the nose is just hidden a little bit more. And there's another variation. Now, for slider up control, we prefer to use a direct control. This will be putting a rubber band on the C-line attachment. Typically, it's the right C-line. Put a rubber band on there. Now find the common point of the slider, pretty much the center point, which allows you to have tension on all 4 grommets. Once you've found that position, pull the slider up, fold it back to create a little bit of a nub, and now that's what you're going to wrap the rubber band around. Now we'll take 2 wraps of the rubber band around that nub of the slider. That is direct control of the slider. So another variation that is available would be a stabilizer variation. This one is the most common variation at the stabilizers. And it would be to put a 45-degree fold in the stabilizer and then do your standard long folds, a 1/3, 2/3 fold in the long fold. This 45 in the stabilizer is gonna starve the bottom surface for just a little bit of air, possibly softening the opening a little bit. Can also provide a little more packaging, if you will, of the entire parachute so that the lift out of the container is more uniform, so the parachute kind of stays together. So again, a 45-degree fold of the stabilizer area, and then the two folds, the two long folds, 1/3, 2/3, and clamp it off and continue with the rest of the pack job. Another variation we can have of the stabilizer is a much tighter rolling method. It kind of starts off with a little bit of a fold, but then you finish rolling off of that fold. And then it's the long folds like we're used to doing to make it the width of the container. Now this is going to restrict the stabilizer a lot more and resist airflow to the bottom of the canopy during deployment. It's also going to really help with the packaging. Again, these are just variations of the stabilizer that you may want to try if you're getting hard openings. There again, it's the fold, and then from there, it's a continuation of a folding rolling method, trying to keep the left side and right side symmetrical. Now your long fold is not as long because you've already used some of that fabric, but we're still going to get the two long folds in there, clamp it off, lay the tail back down, and then continue on with the pack job as described earlier. Okay, Steve's going to don his rig. We're going to get everything adjusted and give you a visual on going with a handheld pilot chute. It's very important to make sure you get all of your rig put on and adjusted before you take out the pilot chute. Never take that pilot chute out of the pocket if your rig's not on. It's too easy to drop it through a leg strap or around a chunk of the harness. You don't want to do that. So put the rig on, make sure all adjustments are done, all excess has been stowed, then reach around and pull the pilot chute out of the pocket. You have to be careful when you're pulling on that bridle that you do not pop the pins. He can reach back and tell that he's got the bridle. This particular rig has a magnet bridle, and it will hop right onto the flap that it was set to. Give us a little bit more back this way, Steve. There you go. Thank you. Then he's going to go full arm extension from there and grab the bridle at that full arm extension. You do not want a bunch of slack between that magnet that's up on his shoulder and the hand. Any slack there can get wrapped underneath the arm. The excess bridle, you're going to take an S-fold into the hand. Just do a nice S-fold, about 4 to 6 inches in length. Keep the bulky spots, the bridle attachment, keep that out of the hand. Yeah, it doesn't have to be in the hand, so leave it out. Fold the mesh back and forth. Now the center line of that pilot chute is elongated, and he's got the cap right there. Excellent. And there is one way to go handheld. Okay, with all of that fabric out, that would be for a shorter free fall. As your free fall delay increases, you're going to want to stow some of that fabric into the hand a little bit more, which he's doing now. Obviously, if you're going into extra long delay, you're going to need to get into a stowed pilot chute. There we go. There's a handheld pilot chute and bridle control. At some point in time, you're going to need to remove the existing pilot chute and exchange it. This is easiest to do right at the pilot chute. Loosen the lark's head knot from the pilot chute. Now pull all the pilot chute through the loop in the bridle. Once you've done that, the bridle should come disconnected from the pilot chute. There's no reason to go all the way down to the canopy and undo it. Now to install the new one, it's repeat of installation. You want to make sure you've got the cross tape of the mesh and the loop in the bottom of the center line. Pull the bridle through there, Now pull all the pilot chute through the loop in the bridle. Tighten it up, double check you've got everything, and you're good to go. At some point in time, it's going to be necessary to remove a slider. It's a really straightforward process if you follow some simple guidelines. What we're going to do first, we're going to remove the toggle from the control line. Again, this is a lark's head knot. Passes through, and we can get it out of everything. We can pull it out of the keeper ring and out of the grommet. Let's lay that back across your leg for right now. We can take care of it later. We'll do that on the other side. The method of removing the slider, we're really going to kind of work from the top down for removing it. If we were putting it on, we'd work from the bottom up. So from the top down means getting rid of the control lines first, pulling them out of the slider grommet, keeping careful not to lose continuity. Now we're going to do one link at a time. If you want to pull the covers off, Steve's using the wrench that's on the T-stake to loosen the link. Don't want to over tighten them when we put them back together. Just a little bit should be enough for hand loosening. If you notice, the barrel of the link should be facing inboard. You want to be careful when you remove the webbing from the link so it doesn't cut the webbing at all. Being careful not to twist the link or lose a line. Pass it through the grommet, and then we're going to put it right back on the riser. And it's fairly straightforward to make sure you don't lose continuity. You haven't twisted the link. On this one, it's easy to tell, again, because now the barrel of that link is still on the inside. And he'll scoot the cover back down over. It's easiest if we go to the other side, the other rear. While we're here, and we'll get both rears completely out of the way. And slide the cover out of the way. Loosen the link. Once the link is loosed, we'll slide it off the riser and lay it down without twisting the riser. And back it through the grommet. Again, no twist in the link. Put it back on the riser. And as long as that barrel ends up finishing on the inside, pretty sure we haven't twisted anything. It will be important that you check continuity after this step. You want to make sure that all these things are hooked up properly. We will be assembling this without the slider, therefore we will be using the line release modification. That mod involves having the control line running free of the guide rings that are on the riser, and because we've removed the slider, it would obviously be free of those. Steve's moved into the front riser, where again he pulls the cover, loosens the link. He'll slide the link off the riser. Once it's off the riser, lay it down without twisting. Get a good grip, get past the link through the slider, again without twisting it. And now the slider has got only one attachment left. And put it back on, hand tighten, and then add a quarter turn. Cover down. And one more, which will be pull the cover, loosen the link, once the link has been loosened, you can get it open just with your fingers. Get it all the way open, get the riser to pass through. Again, being careful not to slice the riser, lay it down without a twist. No twisting of the link as you pass it through the slider. We can get the slider completely out of the way after this step. Sometimes the barrel of the link does position itself so it makes it a little tough to get past the grommet. So just move the barrel of the link slightly and it should slide right on through. Put the link back on the riser. We'll tighten it. And get another quarter turn or so on it. Perfect. And put the cover back down. Now these covers really aren't, we hear them referred to as bumpers, slider bumpers a lot. They're also just link covers. They keep the link situated the way it's supposed to be. You want to keep it in that long axis, not any side loading. Okay, now to finish it off, we will not have the control line going through that guide ring. It's going to go straight to the toggle. You want to make sure you pass the control line through the grommet and then go to the large end of the toggle. Pass the toggle through the loop in the end of the control line. Never take that loop towards the short end of the toggle. You always want to go around the long end. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. The loop goes through the grommet. Now towards the large end, put the toggle through, creating a lark's head knot. You don't need to come back up over the tip. By not doing so, it will keep it nice and symmetrical. That is removing the slider. Do highly recommend doing at least a 4-line check to make sure that the links did not get a twist, and a separate and independent check of the control lines. Make sure we didn't wrap those control lines around anything we shouldn't have. Okay, in this section we will start by installing a slider. Several things that are important when you are dealing with the slider, putting a slider on. You want to make sure you have the proper sized slider for the specific parachute, but also very important is its orientation. You want to make sure that the span of the slider, typically the widest part, goes between the left and the right, where the cord, the narrow portion of the slider, is between the front and back. We also want to make sure the tape of the slider is towards the parachute, where the mesh on the slider is towards the risers. Kind of get this assembly of the slider prepped by getting the control lines out of the way. Also take note of how everything's laid out. The rear risers are to the outside, where the front risers are more towards the center or towards the inside. Go ahead and get these toggles out of the way. Gonna remove the easy grab toggles. They could be reinstalled. We will be using the WLO toggle when we finish with this assembly. Go ahead and remove or slide the covers up and out of the way. Loosen each link. Usually takes a wrench to get it started. You just want to get it so it's movable with your fingers. Do not open them all the way at this time. We don't want any lines to fall off. Going to loosen them. Now that all 4 of them are able to be moved by the fingers, again, kind of checking that there's no twist in the riser. Do take note, you should have all of the barrels facing inboard. That's the barrel of the link there. And starting with the front risers, we will remove the link, get it off the riser, being careful not to put a twist in the link. Pass it through the grommet and reattach it to the riser. Note the link has never been twisted and the barrel is once again on the inside. So we'll be starting with the front 2 risers, working side to side. There's also a stamp that's located on the slider that helps indicate a front and a left orientation. Make sure he's got the correct grommet. Pass the link through the grommet, no twists. And you can see how he was careful when he took the link off the riser not to twist the riser. Tighten it up, again finger tight. Now the 2 fronts are done. And we'll come back and tighten everything up at the same time. Now he'll deal with the rears. And open that link. Remove it from the riser. Do be careful, the inside of the link can sometimes be sharp and can damage the inside of the riser. So be careful. And I pass the link through the grommet and put it back on the riser. All this is being done from the bottom to the top, very orderly, dealing with one link at a time. There's never any need to remove all of the links at one time. You're just going to make it far more difficult. So loosen the link, clear the riser, put the link through the grommet, and then reattach. Once this is complete, we have the control lines back, we will want to check continuity. You can do that solo by walking between the two, or if you need to enlist some help, that is covered in another section of the DVD. Now the slider is in place and we'll need to get the links tight, but before that we will get the control lines back through the grommet. Now the slider is in play, we must have the control lines going through the slider grommet and through the keeper ring on the riser. So anytime the slider is in use, you need to include the control line going through the grommet and the keeper ring. Now for the WLO toggles, the what line over toggles, this is a releasable system. These toggles have the ability to release the control line in the event of a line over malfunction when your slider up. Gives you a very similar capability as the line release mod when you're without the slider. The control line comes from behind, goes through the grommet, the pin goes through the control line, then mate the Velcro and insert the tab back into the pocket. In the event of a line over, the tab is pulled, the Velcro is pulled. Continuing to pull will release the pin, therefore releasing the control line. The toggle must be unstowed for the control line to be completely free. And again, for the other side, control line goes through the grommet, goes through the guide ring on the riser, and the control line is then placed through the grommet from the back side of the toggle. The pin is slid up into position, going through the loop in the control line. Now it's important not to tie a WLO toggle on using a knot. The knot will not pass back through the guide ring or the grommet. It must be a sewn loop like you would find in a standard apex base canopy. If you do not have this type of system, you'll need to get it finger trapped and bar tacked. Once the toggles are in place, go ahead and tighten all 4 links. Again, be careful not to over tighten. Basically, you want these connector links finger tighten plus a 1/4 turn. And all 4 are now done. Slide the covers back over the links. Once that's done, go ahead and lift the slider just to check the orientation. And that is a slider install. On this variation, we will show you the Apex TL. The Apex TL has the through loop configuration. These are the loops coming off of the back pad. It also has a pocket with DP style loops and loop keepers. That's where they're stored. There's the DP style loop and keeper. Install the loop through the grommet and install the plastic keeper. This will just keep you from losing the closing loop between jumps. Repeat that procedure for both the bottom and the top flap if you're going to close it the DP style. When you're not using them, they stow in the pocket, they get tucked away behind the warning label. On this closing, we will show you the through loop closing. You need 2 pull-up cords typically for this closing. Run your pull-up cords through the respected loops. These loops should be finger trapped so that only the top inch to 3/4 of an inch creates the loop. This is a ultralight parachute. It also is outfitted with through loop channels or pass-through channels. You can see those directly above the tail pocket, and we will be using them to pack. These are somewhat new, patent pending. And this will allow the closing loop to actually pass through the first layer of canopy. The second layer of canopy will actually fold the canopy around the closing loops like you would a skydiving reserve. We'll start this closure by getting the risers on top of the top flap. Grasp the tail pocket, work the risers into the container. On the TL, when we're using the through loops, we like to put the tail pocket on its back at the top of the container. Basically pivot the entire pack job around the tail pocket. This will expose the nose quite well. You can do a little dressing of the nose at this time. We will need to bring the closing loops through the pass-through channels. Takes a little bit of looking to find them. Just want to bring it right up through the pass-through channel and lay it off to the side. There's the top one. You can approach this by just basically digging from the top or by pushing from the bottom. So he's got the bottom closing loop. He'll find the pass-through channel and just kind of meet the hands. There's a couple different techniques you can use here. You basically just need to get the closing loops and pull-up cords through the pass-through channels. Once that's complete, find the location you want to make the bottom fold, which is pretty much even with the bottom of the container. That's your bulky fold that you'll use to fill the bottom of the container. Bridle attachment and bridle come towards the top of the container. Where the closing loops and the pull-up cords actually pass through the first layer of canopy by going through the pass-through channel, the second layer of canopy, we're going to do a molar style pack job, which basically splits the canopy left and right. The center cell gets kind of compressed down towards the bottom. This is very similar to the way you'll see a reserve on a dual parachute system packed. So you have a left and a right molar. The center cell is in the middle. And he'll go ahead and start closing. And this one will close bottom first. After the bottom is secured, the right side flap for this closing, and then the left. The through loops allow a great deal of compression of the canopy, which will squeeze the air out. And secure with the bottom pin. Now for the top, we'll tuck the ears of the molar, or the portion of the molar, back into the container. These can be made so that that fold is about even with that top grommet, maybe just a slight bit taller than the top grommet. Now for the top grommet, we'll tuck the fabric back so it's about even with or just slightly above the top grommet. Get the pull-up cord through the top flap grommet and pull the pull-up cord so you can actually see the closing loop. Then work on the right side flap, then the left side flap, keeping the bridle clear and coming through the top, finishing with the curved pin. Mate the slack Velcro on the bridle and remove pull-up cords. Make sure you count all your tools, whether that be the 4 or 6 clamps and 2 pull-up cords. And tuck the pin protector flap. It does require a little dressing up at the top of the container, a little shakedown, and riser cover. Both riser covers. And most of the TL and TLS containers will have the bottomless corners, which will require tucking in as well. That can be accomplished by finding the spot, usually coming up the sidewall, a little dressing there, a little dressing there, and tuck. That is the TL and the TLS closing. Finish off with the bridle. It can be tucked under the left side flap, cross over to the right side flap, and into the bridle tuck area. Okay, here we have another container we're going to show you. This is the DP2. We're basically doing the same type of pack job. We're going to put it in the container just a little differently than the earlier pack job, just kind of showing you some variations that are capable. On this one, Steve made the fold a little bit closer, that first fold, a little closer to the top of the container rather than directly off the tail pocket. Again, it's going to put a little bit different bulk distribution. So there's just a little variation. This is a standard DP with a different pin protector flap. It does have a reverse order when you're closing the flap. On the traditional DP style, the first style, DP1, it was a right side, left side closure. On the DP2, it is a left side, right side closure. So he will start by closing the left flap first. It does work in either configuration, but we like the way it looks basically. I think you'll like the way it looks better when you close the left side first. Now he's closing the right side, and he'll find the bridle with the pin. It's tucked in just a little bit. There it is. First pin will be for the top. Then the second pin will be for the one he's already got closed. Okay, so now he's got the bottom pin all set. Gets his pull-up cord out, and he'll close the top. This is a different pin protector flap, is the primary difference. Has a little different styling on the side flaps, but the function of the container is the same, both using a top and bottom flap closure. The bridle is also a little different. On the standard DPs, you would take the bridle out the upper left-hand side. On the DP2, we're taking the bridle out between the two grommets. So you'll see in the close-up shot that the bridle is actually coming out between the two grommets right there. And close in the normal manner with the curved pin. Get his pull-up cord out underneath so we don't burn through the loop or melt through the loop. And the bridle enters the container now between the two. Tuck the slack in there. Close the pin protector flap. And you're ready to rock. A little bit of dressing. And there generally is a little bit of dressing that needs to be done with just about all pack jobs. Push the flaps into place. Close the riser covers. Do a little tap here and there. And that is how to close the DP2.